There's one thing you do in your kitchen every single day that feels completely normal to you, but it would make a Japanese person cringe inside. Most Westerners have no idea they're doing anything wrong. In fact, the cleaner you think your kitchen is, the more likely you are to be guilty of at least 3 of these. I'm going to show you 9 everyday kitchen habits that Japan considers genuinely disgusting. And according to modern science and basic food safety, they have a point. The first habit is something you do every single day, and it's spreading bacteria across every dish in your kitchen. And the last habit is the one a Japanese person would fix first, because until you fix it, nothing else you clean in your kitchen stays clean. The first Western habit that disgusts Japanese people has to do with your cleaning sponge. The average kitchen sponge holds more bacteria per square inch than the seat of a public toilet, and yours has been sitting damp by the sink for months, while the Japanese replace their sponge every week and dry it out completely between every single use. Your kitchen is the most important room in the house, and this is the first step towards keeping it clean. It all starts with one idea the Japanese take more seriously than people in the West. Anything unclean spreads bacteria and dirt from one surface to the next, and from one object to everything it touches. So ask yourself, are you removing the dirt, or are you just moving it somewhere else? Think about the last time you used your kitchen sponge. It's been squashed into the corner since last night, still wet from the washing up, sitting in a shallow puddle in its little plastic tray. You'll pick it up after dinner tonight and run it across a clean plate, and it'll feel completely normal because that sponge has lived there for 3 or 4 months and nothing bad has ever happened. But a sponge holds water in thousands of tiny pockets, and it stays warm from the tap, and it's full of food particles from every plate you scraped. Bacteria doubles roughly every 20 minutes in those conditions, which means the bacteria on your sponge has been multiplying all the way through the night while you slept. Then you picked it up in the morning and wiped down the counter or some dishes with it. This may also explain the faint sour smell around your sink. To stop your sponge from being the dirtiest object in your kitchen, you need to dry it out completely between uses. Wring it out hard after the washing up, hang it somewhere with air around it instead of leaving it in the sink, and swap it for a new one every week instead of every season. Bacteria need water to multiply, and a sponge that's bone dry by morning can't grow anything overnight. But water isn't just the reason your sponge is dirty. It's also the reason your entire kitchen gets contaminated every time you cook chicken. The second Western habit that disgusts Japanese people has to do with how you handle raw chicken. Around 44% of people in the West rinse their chicken under the tap before cooking it, thinking it's the responsible thing to do, while a Japanese kitchen would never let raw chicken touch the sink at all. Think about the last time you cooked chicken. You took it out of the packaging, held it under the cold tap for a few seconds, gave it a quick rub, and moved it to the pan. But rinsing raw chicken doesn't wash the bacteria off, it just spreads it across your whole kitchen. The bacteria comes off the meat and off the sink basin and lands on the taps, the counter beside the sink, whatever's sitting on the draining board, and the front of whatever you're wearing. Food safety researchers have actually measured how far those droplets travel, and it's further than you'd guess. Nearly 3 feet in every direction from the tap, which covers most of the working part of a normal kitchen counter. The food poisoning bacteria on raw chicken survives perfectly well on a cold counter for hours after the rinse. The heat of the pan would have killed every bit of it on the chicken itself, but the rinse spread it into the parts of the kitchen the heat never reaches. And instead of a clean kitchen, you have a contaminated one. The solution is to stop rinsing your chicken entirely. Take the chicken out of the packaging and put it straight in the pan. If the surface of the meat looks wet, pat it with a piece of kitchen paper and put the paper straight in the bin, then wash your hands properly before you touch anything else. The heat handles what the water was never going to. That's the pattern behind every habit on this list. The Japanese don't scrub harder, they set the room up so dirt never spreads in the first place. And if keeping your kitchen clean matters to you, I've put all the Japanese methods they use to keep their home and land spotless and organized into this book. Scan the QR code on screen or click the link in the description to get your copy and transform your home and kitchen while you save money. The third habit is one Japanese people find genuinely hard to watch, and it's the way people in the West wash their dishes. You fill the plastic bowl in your sink with hot water and a squirt of washing up liquid, and then you work through the pile in the usual order. Glasses first, then plates, then cutlery, and the pans at the very end because they're the worst. By the time you reach that last pan, the water has gone lukewarm and slightly gray. There's food floating in it, and you're still washing in it because it's only one more pan and starting over feels wasteful. Think about what that water actually is at that point. Everything you rinsed off the first 15 items is still sitting in there, suspended around your hands. You're not really washing that last pan so much as dipping it into a concentrate of everything that came before it, and then putting it on the rack to dry with all of that stuck to the surface. There's a second thing happening in that bowl that people miss. The cloth or sponge you're using to wash with has been sitting in the same water the whole time, so by the last few items, you're not just rinsing dirt off, you're rubbing it back on with something that's been soaking in it for 20 minutes. The plate looks clean because the grease is gone, but the surface has just been wiped over with the same water it came out of. Japanese kitchens wash under running water for exactly this reason. Whatever comes off an item goes straight down the drain and never touches the next thing, so there's no shared pool for the dirt to collect in. Each item gets clean water, and whatever leaves, it leaves for good. You don't have to throw out the bowl to fix this. Keep it for soaking and lifting the heavy stuff off pans, but give every item a final rinse under the running tap before it goes on the rack. That one rinse is the difference between a plate that's clean and a plate that's been dipped in the day's dirt. Habit 4 happens later the same night, once the plates are drying and the kitchen light is off. There's one dish you didn't wash, the roasting tin, and you've left it filled with hot water in the sink because the burnt bits were welded to the bottom and scrubbing at 11 at night felt like too much. In the morning, the food lifts off, and it feels like the trick worked. What actually happened is that the tin spent 8 hours sitting in warm, greasy, food-filled water in the middle of the room where you make your food, with the sink out of use the whole time. Anyone who came in for a glass of water in the night had to work around it. That smell in the kitchen the next morning is coming from exactly that. And the water you tip away is the same water you've been soaking the tin's surface in all night. There's also the drain itself to think about. Whatever was in that water has been sitting against the plug hole all night, and the seal around the strainer is exactly the sort of dark, wet, warm place that grows the smell you can never quite locate the source of. People blame the bin or the disposal, and half the time it's the sink that sat full while everyone was asleep. A Japanese kitchen finishes the kitchen before anyone leaves it. The pan gets dealt with that night, and if something genuinely needs loosening, it gets a short soak with hot water while the rest of the washing up happens around it. Then it's washed, dried, and put away with everything else. The sink goes to bed empty. The fix is to give yourself the short soak instead of the overnight one. Fill the tin with hot water the moment the food comes out of it. Do the rest of the washing up while it sits, and the burnt bits will lift in 2 minutes instead of 8 hours. Number 5 is one you're about to do tonight without noticing, and it's the one most people refuse to believe is a problem. You walk into your kitchen wearing the shoes you had on outside, you stand at the counter in them while you chop vegetables, you carry a bag of shopping across the floor in them, and none of it feels like a decision because it isn't one. The shoes go on in the morning and come off at night, and everything in between happens in them. Those soles have been on a pavement, through a car park, across the floor of a supermarket and a petrol station forecourt, and everything that was on those surfaces is now on your kitchen floor. It sits there until it dries out, and then it lifts back into the air when someone walks past, and it lands on the counter and the hob and the chopping board you left out on the side. It's also where anything you drop ends up. And the 5-second rule feels reasonable right up until you think about where that floor has been. It's worse if there's a dog in the house, because the dog is on the same floor at nose height and licks its paws afterwards. It's worse again if there's a small child, because the child is on that floor with their hands and puts those hands in their mouth every couple of minutes. The floor stops being a floor and starts being a shared surface with everything you eat off. Japanese homes stop all of this at the front door with the genkan, the step down at the entrance where outdoor shoes come off and stay. Nothing from outside travels past that point, so the kitchen floor only ever meets bare feet or indoor slippers. The floor stays clean because nothing dirty ever reaches it, not because anyone's mopping it more often than you do. The fix is a shoe rack by your door and a pair of indoor slippers next to it. Your kitchen floor stops being an extension of the pavement, and everything that used to land on it stops being a problem. Number 6 is hanging on your oven door right now, and it's been doing 3 different jobs all week. You dry the dishes with it, then you dry your hands on it, and then you use it to mop up something you spilled on the floor. It stays on that rail until it gets properly dirty or the week ends, whichever comes first. It feels like a clean thing because it's a cloth that lives in a clean room. That towel has been damp since the first time you used it, and it never fully dries between jobs. It moves whatever was on the floor onto your hands and then onto the plates you dried with it, and it's been doing that for days. If your kitchen ever smells faintly like old dishwater, the towel is usually where it's coming from. The same reason the sponge smells, which is water sitting in fabric for long enough that something starts growing in it. There's also the way people carry the towel, tucked into a waistband or slung over a shoulder while they cook, which drags it across the front of clothes that have been out in the world all day and then puts it back on the rail as if nothing happened. The loop it hangs from is usually the dirtiest part of the whole thing because that's the bit that never fully dries and never gets washed. Japanese kitchens run separate cloths for separate jobs, and the fukin used for dishes doesn't touch anything else. It gets washed at high heat regularly, sometimes boiled, and it's hung out to dry fully between uses instead of being folded back onto a rail while it's still damp. The fix is to have one cloth for dishes, one for hands, and something else entirely for the floor. Change the dishcloth every couple of days and hang all of them somewhere they can actually dry. If you can, keep them on a hook with space around them rather than folded over a bar, because a folded towel has 2 layers pressed together in the middle, and that middle never dries. The corners are usually the last part to go, so hang them by a corner rather than the middle if you want the whole thing dry by morning. And if the towel still smells slightly off after a wash, the machine didn't get it hot enough. A quick boil in a pan on the hob resets it, and you don't need to throw it out. Number 7 is the biggest one on this list, and it's the one you're literally eating every day. Think about how you wash a plate, you put it in hot soapy water, you give it a quick pass under the tap, or you skip that part entirely, and then it goes on the rack to dry. Some households rinse properly, and plenty don't, because once the plate looks clean and the grease is gone, the job feels finished. What's still on that plate is a thin film of washing up liquid, and it dries onto the surface as the water evaporates. You can see it if you hold a dry glass up to the light and look at the faint cloudiness across it, and you can taste it in a cup of tea made in a mug straight off the rack. That detergent ends up on your food and in your mouth at every meal in small amounts every single day. The soap did its job the moment it lifted the grease off, and everything after that is residue you're eating. Most people also use 2 or 3 times more washing up liquid than they need because the bottle pours easily and a big squirt feels like it's doing more work. It isn't. A small amount lifts grease just as well, and every extra drop is more residue to rinse off afterwards, which is the step you were probably going to skip anyway. A Japanese kitchen rinses every item under running water until the surface actually squeaks, and that rinse is treated as part of washing up, not an optional extra at the end. Nothing goes on the rack carrying anything else, which is the whole reason those plates come out looking properly clear instead of faintly filmed. The fix is to rinse everything properly under a running tap before it goes on the rack. It adds about 30 seconds to your washing up, and it stops you eating detergent off your own plates. The other place this shows up is in glassware, because a glass with dried soap film on it will kill the head on a beer and flatten a fizzy drink within a minute. If you've ever poured something into a glass straight off the rack and watched the bubbles disappear faster than they should, that's the reason, and a proper rinse fixes it on the spot. Number 8 is a different kind of problem. It's not something you're doing wrong, it's something you've stopped noticing. It's standing in the corner of your kitchen with the lid open, and you stopped smelling it weeks ago. You put food waste in the bin, and you empty it when the bag is full, or when it starts to smell bad enough to force the job. If the lid gets in the way, you leave it open because you're going to use it again in a minute anyway. That bin is holding warm food waste in a warm room, and every hour it stays there, it gets worse. The smell you've stopped noticing is still reaching everyone who walks in, and the open lid means whatever's growing in there is sharing air with the food on your counter. It's also why fruit flies show up in summer and seem impossible to get rid of. The source is sitting there in the open, being restocked every day. Look at the underside of the lid the next time you open it. The part you never see is usually darker than the inside of the bin, because that's where the steam from warm food waste condenses and drips back down, and nothing ever wipes it. The other place it collects is the lip where the bag folds over the rim, which spends all week sitting against food waste on one side and your hand on the other every time you throw something away. Japanese households separate their waste and take it out on a fixed schedule instead of waiting for a bag to fill up, so food waste doesn't spend days in the room where meals get made. The bin has a lid that stays shut, and the container itself gets washed out regularly instead of just relined. The fix is to keep the lid closed, take food waste out daily instead of weekly, and wash the bin itself every so often. The smell goes, the flies go, and the corner of your kitchen stops being the dirtiest part of the room. If you don't want to walk out to the main bin every night, keep a small lidded caddy on the counter for the day's scraps and empty that one caddy into the outside bin before bed. It's the same amount of walking as taking a full bag out on Sunday, spread across the week, and the kitchen never has to hold anything overnight. Now for the last habit, number 9 is the one that decides whether any of the other 8 actually stick. You use your sink as the place things go when they're dirty. Plates stack in it, the tea goes down it, food scraps end up in the drain, and it gets a wipe when you're already cleaning something else. It's the one part of the kitchen you've silently agreed is allowed to be grubby, because it's where the grubbiness collects. Everything you washed tonight sat in that basin. The water that lifted grease off your plates ran across it, the food from the drain has been in the strainer since lunchtime, and the surface stays wet all day. Your clean dishes drain onto it, your hands touch it constantly, and it's the last thing anything touches before it goes into a cupboard is clean. The dirtiest surface in the room is the one every clean item passes through on the way out. The places that hold the most in a sink are the ones you never really look at. The underside of the tap, where the neck meets the base, the sealant line where the basin meets the counter, and the rim around the plug hole all collect a film you can feel with a fingernail but never notice with your eyes. A quick wipe of the visible bit of the basin doesn't touch any of them. A Japanese kitchen finishes with the sink. It gets washed out at the end of the night. The drain strainer is emptied and rinsed, and the whole basin is wiped down and left dry instead of sitting wet until morning. Cleaning the sink counts as the last act of the day, and the kitchen isn't finished until it's done. The solution is to spend 2 minutes on the sink after the washing up is finished. Empty the strainer, wash the basin, wipe it dry. It's the smallest job on this list, and it's the one that holds the other 8 together, because a clean sink is what makes everything you just cleaned actually stay clean. So that's all 9, and if you want to know which one to start with first, there's a quick way to work it out. Ask yourself 3 questions about any habit in your kitchen. Am I removing this dirt, or am I moving it somewhere else? Is this thing wet right now when it should be dry? And would I be comfortable if someone watched me do this? The sponge, the bowl, the towel, and the sink all fail the first 2 immediately, which is why they're the ones worth starting with tonight. One more thing worth saying before you close this. None of these habits feel dirty while you're doing them, and that's the whole reason they've lasted. Every one of them made sense the first time someone did it. The sponge stayed by the tap because that's where you use it. The bowl saved water. The towel was handy on the rail. The shoes were already on your feet. The problem isn't that people are careless. It's that the habits were built for convenience and nobody went back and checked what they were actually doing. The Japanese versions aren't harder. They're just built the other way round, designed for the room to stay clean and convenient as a side effect. Pick one and do the sink tonight after dinner, because it takes 2 minutes and you'll notice the difference in the morning. All right, that's it from me. Thank you for watching, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Did anything catch you off guard? Let me know, and I'll see you in the next one.